Good evening. Good evening. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We'll give everyone just a few more minutes to get in. We have a wonderfully jam packed meeting today with some great information that we want to provide to you, the wonderful residents of Gwinnett County. We'll give everyone just a few more minutes to get in, and then we'll bring some folks up and get started. We want y'all to be as interactive today as you can, so please feel free to jump in chat and throw some information in there, ask some questions. We're here to answer them, and have a great time with you all this evening. Again, you are listening to the Gwinnett NAACP. I am Simeon Harris, and I'm going to bring on some wonderful people here. And I will start with our president, Penny Poole. So I'll be bringing Penny on momentarily. Hey, Penny, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Simeon. How are you?
I'm doing swell on this wonderful day, give or take, but good nonetheless. Happy to be here and happy to be talking to the wonderful members that we have as well as you. We got a couple of people in the house today. I want to give just another minute or two, if that's all right with you, Penny, for a few folks to fall in. We are live on YouTube and Facebook right now. So on the Gwinnett NAACP YouTube page and the Gwinnett NAACP Facebook page. For those of you that do not know, you can join the Gwinnett NAACP by going to naacpgwinnett.org. And there you can join us in our fight of continued justice. Rebecca, I think you called me on this last time. It is still evening. I think you're correct about that. It is still evening. Hey, Rebecca Mitchell, great to see you. We are so looking forward to some more great things as you start your legislative session. Good to see you here, and thank you for joining Rebecca Mitchell, Dr. Rebecca Mitchell. My apologies. All right. Well, why don't we get ready to kick off? We do have a couple of more people backstage that I'll start to bring on as well. How's it going, Derek? How's it going, Hope?
Hi, how are you?
Doing
Hi.
well, doing well.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Happy for you to be here. Happy for you to be here. Well, awesome, Penny. If you want to go ahead and get started, I'll be happy to start us off in some prayer, and then we can move forward if that's fine with you.
That is excellent. Thank you.
Awesome. Lord, thank you for bringing us all here together, bringing us here together with the thoughts, hopes, and prayers around justice, bringing us here to spread information to keep us all in fellowship and keep us all in the information. We ask that you bless all of our speakers today and all of those in the audience listening. We appreciate you. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for that. And as you spoke earlier, talking about being happy about today, this is the day that the Lord has made. We shall rejoice. We shall rejoice with everything that has been happening in 2020. And now the doors of 2021 have opened up. We are just prepared to be ready for anything because we are standing. I want to just say Happy New Year to all of you. Happy New Year to our community. I want to say I'm glad that we have made it on this side. I hope that all of you are sheltering safely, that you're wearing your mask, that your children are in school, and if they are virtual or if they are in person, that they are safe, that the teachers are safe. There is so much happening. I won't even talk about what's going on at the Capitol because it's being covered 24/7. We're going to concentrate on where we are and who we are today. and not let those things overshadow what people need to do and get done in 2021. So, with that being said, first of all, I want to welcome you all. And this meeting of the Gwinnett chapter of the NAACP, chapter 5664, is called to order. And tonight, um, again, with these virtual meetings, we try to, since we are very limited with time, we have our minutes from our last meeting and they are available for our members to see. And we will be having an annotated meeting again today because we have a special guest. Our meeting will flow smoothly because on our agenda is first the introduction of our new officers who were elected, as well as having the introduction of our guest speaker for tonight, who has previously been here with us. There will be announcements at the end of this program, but let me, without further ado, introduce you to your officers for 2021 and 2022. And I will start with VP Edward Paul. Can we see Edward? Can we put us up all on the screen after we call their name? Simeon?
Absolutely. I have Derek
Great.
and Hope already on the screen, but I don't see Edward yet in the broadcast room. So uh,
I, okay.
we'll call his name and recognize him. Awesome, Edward. I know Edward's been doing awesome
Okay.
stuff already.
Yes, yes. Edward is our VP, newly elected VP, and we look for great things. He is excited. He has been doing awesome work with our pack, and we just know he will be ready to do more wonderful things. We have another vice president, and we will just be introducing our executive committee so that we can just welcome them in tonight. And our next VP is Hope Dennis. Can we? vi- She is a mighty woman of God. She is a sophomore in college. She has the pulse of the community. Need I say more? I could go on and on. Hope Dennis,
Thank
we are
you.
just excited to have you aboard.
I'm
And
excited to
then,
be part of this family. Thank you.
And
great.
Hope is awesome. I just want to throw out that I learned how to do election protection from Hope. So Hope was my captain in the very first time that I did election protection. So Hope definitely has a lot to offer, and I'm so happy that you're here, Hope.
Thank you.
Wonderful. And our secretary, he has an emergency tonight. His name is Tristan Guest, and I will pronounce his name incorrectly. Tristan is our secretary, and he and his family uh, is part of the Gwinnett community. His children attend school. He is a writer. Tristan King. My brain needed to process, y'all. Let's Tristan, his beautiful wife, his lovely children. He is a family man. He is a pillar standing in this community to make sure that things will happen and go correctly. We're excited to have Kristen aboard. Tristan aboard. Thank you. And then we have our treasurer. Our treasurer is Derek Wilson. So many of you know Derek from running for the Gwinnett County Commission. He was overwhelmingly received in the community. He has been standing. He is a proud father and husband with three wonderful children. We just want to welcome him aboard, his energy, his enthusiasm. Thank you, Derek, for being aboard. Okay,
Thank
so
you.
those are our elected officers. Derek, would you have a word to say?
I just wanted to say thank you, and I want to introduce our president, uh, She is a pillar of the community. She's been here for umpteen years. She knows the she knows the pulse of the community. She was one of the ones fighting on the ground for voter protection. I mean, it wouldn't be a Gwinnett NAACP without her, the one and only Miss Penny Poole.
Now that's an introduction, Derek, and it is worthy.
Well,
Bravo, President Poole.
we are all ready to get in the trenches and do the work for the people of Gwinnett. And we are just going to right now just raise our hands. And these are our elected officials. We do, and this is our executive board. And we will have committee members, but we will make sure that we introduce our committee members at a later time. I see Edward. Did Edward come on the scene? Here is our
Yeah, I
vice
was logged
president.
in at first, and for some reason I wasn't in the broadcast, so I came out and came back. But good afternoon,
Wonderful.
everyone.
So yeah, Edward is new to Gwinnett, but he is excited about helping helping this county to emerge into a place where family, children can have a thriving life. He's ready to thrive, and this is how and why he makes it so exciting to be one of the vice presidents of the Gwinnett NAACP. He wants us to thrive and grow. And I just welcome you and welcome your talents and welcome you aboard. Would you like to say
Thank you.
something?
Oh, thank you. No, just like I said, just glad to be a part of trying to take Gwinnett to the next level and trying to improve the community, both in education, politically, economically, um, uh, prison reform, the whole nine. We got our work to do according to some of the committees I've been attending and listening to a lot of the different issues, but I definitely think we got the right group of people to get things turned around.
Thank you. And I and last but certainly not least, our assistant treasurer, Princess Hawkins. Princess, are you there? Okay. Well, she's not with us now. I know she was trying to get on, so we'll make sure that we introduce her later. So if you would raise your left hand and repeat after me. I, the newly elected
I
officers, I promise to serve my community,
I promise to
Promise to
serve
serve
my
our
community,
community,
do our best to walk in the light and to uplift our fellow men,
do our
do
best
our
to walk
best
in
to
the
walk
light
in the light and uplift
and
our
uplift our
fellow
fellow
men.
man.
and we agree to agree.
We
We
agree
agree to
to
agree.
agree.
You are the new EC for the NAACP Gwinnett. Y'all thought I was
Woo!
going to take that long. No, we are succinct. We're walking in the light and we want to be a light unto this community. So, without further ado, we're going to let this light shine and we're going to go forward with the work of Gwinnett County. So, with that, we're going to turn it back over to, thank you all. We look forward to a great season. Turn it back over to Simeon.
Thank you, Penny, and congratulations again to all of the officers. I'm so happy to have all of you on, and I've already seen wonderful contributions from each of you in a bunch of different ways. So, and President Poole, as always, I know you are getting it in, getting it done, and making it happen. So, we really appreciate you. We have a very powerful guest today. Back in April, when the pandemic was really first hitting really heavy, we had the opportunity to have a wonderful guest. And if you go on our YouTube page, you will see an interview with Dr. Camara Phyllis Jones. And it was such a powerful interview. where we had such a good time, but it also kind of spoke to things that really hadn't even happened yet as it pertains to who was going to be affected with the what communities were going to be most affected with coronavirus, and some of the things that that was the first time I heard someone speak of making sure you had an oxygen meter when you left the hospital. It was the first time I had heard a lot of those things, and I was really happy that we had an opportunity to help prepare the Gwinnett County residents for some of the things to come that no one really knew were going to turn out that way. And Dr. Jones is a family physician and epidemiologist whose work focuses on the impacts of racism on the health and well-being of the nation. She seeks to broaden the national health debate to include not only universal access to high quality health care, but also attention to the social detriments of health, including poverty, and the social detriments of equity, including racism. So, with no further wait from anyone, I'd like to welcome Dr. Camara Jones to our broadcast. Hi, Dr. Jones, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine. Hi, Simeon, and hi, Penny, and all the rest of you. Congratulations to the officers, and I'm really glad to be back with the Gwinnett NAACP this evening.
We are so happy to have you. Could you tell I know I did that little rinky-dink introduction of you, and I know you have so much more going at any given time. Can you tell our audience a little bit more about you and what you're up to now, as well as just some more ideas about you?
So last time I was with you all, I still was in Cambridge, Massachusetts, where I had spent 9 months up at Harvard University as a Radcliffe Fellow. So I came back on May 31st. I was so scared because I had hidden away for 10 and a half weeks. I was that lucky. I had hidden in my 1-bedroom apartment for 10 and a half weeks, hadn't gone downstairs to check the mail but twice in 10 and a half weeks. But I did get on that airplane with my mask and all that stuff, and I came back home to Atlanta. So I'm here in Atlanta. I live in DeKalb County. So I'm not up in Gwinnett, but close. And since then, and since the really vicious murder of Mr. George Floyd on Memorial Day, and since we had learned even just before that about the police killing of Breonna Taylor and the vigilante killing of Ahmaud Arbery, and then the people, since Rayshard Brooks here, and on and on and on, there has been an awakening among not just us who've known about racism for centuries, but other people who finally were like, oh, there is something different going on here. And so I have been actually on the radio, on the TV, interviewed by media. I've been talking to companies and schools and the like, actually just to give people tools to understand 4 things about racism: that racism exists, because there's a whole lot of racism denial even now. But beyond the fact that racism exists, that racism is a system, that racism saps the strength of the whole society, and that we can and we must act to dismantle racism. So that has been my work, especially these past months. And the other thing is trying to understand, trying to motivate people to act about the disproportionate impact that COVID-19 continues to have in our communities. It's not just that we were the first and hardest impacted, but we continue even now to be the hardest impacted. And if you look at who's dying and then you adjust for age, our Black and Brown and Indigenous folks are dying much younger. We have like a 2.5 times as many Black and Indigenous and Latinx folks dying than white folks and Asian folks from this virus. And then now you have the vaccine rollout, and we are all trying to figure out what to do. So I came tonight at your invitation to answer you all's questions about COVID-19, about the vaccine, about what else do we need to do, And I could start out with it depends on how you want me to start. I could say a little bit of something, but I really, really want people to ask your questions, because what I know is that there is vaccine hesitancy in all communities. The Black community of all communities has the most basis for having vaccine hesitancy. But actually, one of the first surveys I saw showed that 35% of Black folks were not quite sure they were going to take the vaccine, at least not right away. But there were 42% of Republicans that said the same thing, and certain of rural. And in a way, we need to acknowledge the vaccine hesitancy. We need to acknowledge the historical and present day interactions that result in that vaccine hesitancy, because it's not a matter of we should trust, it's a matter that the system should be trustworthy. But on the other hand, I don't want us to get so stuck thinking, well, Black folks are so vaccine hesitant and everybody else is racing ahead. It's a lot of people who are hesitant, and we don't want to think that vaccine hesitancy is like, okay, that's like a real Black thing, and I'm going to be with that. So I will just say that I haven't had the vaccine yet because it's not my turn in line yet. I am going, here in Georgia, I'm in phase 1A+. I'm not a frontline healthcare provider right now. I'm not in a nursing home, but I am 65 or older, and I do have a pre-existing condition. So that gives me two things. So I am trying my best right now to make an appointment to get the vaccine. That's not to say we shouldn't have questions. We definitely have legitimate questions all around. All kinds of people have questions. But what I have to say, and I would like to hear your questions, but what I have to say is that I have decided to take the vaccine because the two that we have in the United States are extremely effective. And we have had to live with uncertainty all our lives. And I am prepared to live with the uncertainties associated with this very effective vaccine, as opposed to risk dying from COVID-19, or even if I don't die from it, if I get it, having long-term side effects that we don't even know how those are going to turn out in the end. So I said a whole mouthful right there. I was going to wait for some questions, but happy to hear a first question either from you, President Poole, or any of you guys who are the officers now, or anybody who's listening right now.
Yes. You're muted, Penny. You're muted, Penny. Go ahead.
Oh,
there you go.
All right. Great. Let's open up the chat. Do we have any questions in the chat yet for Dr. Jones?
Not yet, but please, everyone out there on Google, on YouTube or Facebook, please put your questions in chat. I'll throw them up and read them. While we're waiting on those questions, you kind of talk?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Penny.
I do have a question. Because I was ready for you, because this is it's the unknown, and you hear so much verbiage, so much underlying tones. Is this actually made from DNA? I have been told that this vaccine is made from human DNA. That's one of the gossip or things that is being told. Is that true?
No, so it's not made from human DNA. It's not made from DNA at all. It is a little snippet of what's called messenger RNA. So DNA and RNA are both kind of genetic material. DNA has two strands, RNA has one. And there are two kinds of viruses. There are DNA viruses and RNA viruses. And this COVID is an RNA virus. But this is not the virus. This is a little snippet of the RNA that codes for the spikes that we have seen in all those pictures of the virus. And the reason that the scientists were interested in the bit of RNA that gets translated into the spikes is because that is how our immune system can be trained to recognize the virus, is the spikes. So what this is, there's a little snippet of messenger RNA, mRNA, in both the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccines. The little snippet of mRNA is wrapped up in fat globules, and there's no other preservative or anything else in it, which is why they have to be kept cold. The Pfizer, much colder than the Moderna, must be using a different kind of fat. Anyway, when they inject the vaccine in you, they aren't injecting virus. There's no virus up in it. But when they inject the vaccine, it makes your cells, it goes, the little messenger which is quickly degraded. That's why it has to be so cold too and protected in the fat. Otherwise, it would be destroyed right away in your body. But it gets long enough to get into some of your cells where they themselves can temporarily produce the spike protein. They presented the immune cells in the body say, oh, we need to learn about this. And that's what they do. There's the first primer kind of vaccine. And then for Pfizer, 3 weeks later, for Moderna, 4 weeks later, you get the booster. After those 2 shots, within 1 or 2 weeks after that second shot, you should be really good. We don't know for how long. We don't know if you're really good for 6 months, for a year, 10 years. We don't know, because we don't know everything about this. But we know you're really good right now, that 94 to 95% of those people who took the vaccine were protected from having any symptomatic COVID-19. None of them died, right? 5% got a little bit of symptomatic COVID-19 compared to the ones who got the placebo, who didn't get the real vaccine in the clinical trials.
Yeah, and believe it or not, it was educated people who were speaking with these misconceptions. And there's so much confusion out there. And I know when I asked that question, it sounded so far-fetched, but this is actual conversations, because I was involved with family this weekend, but actual conversations that adult people were having. So that's why I put it out there.
Thank you for that
Thank
question.
you.
Yeah. May I say something else before we go even more deeply into the vaccine? Because you heard I'm a family physician. I'm an epidemiologist, which is public health research, right? And I just have to say that I am so delighted we have this vaccine. But what we have, I'm going to give you one of my kind of analogies. Like I see something and I think of something else and it helps me to understand it better. Well, this analogy is about the vaccine is individual protection, almost as if, it was a fire-resistant garment that a firefighter might wear, right? And we are in the midst of a raging fire of this pandemic. It started out as a grease fire on the stove, let's say, and they thought, oh, it's just Black people. We're not going to care about that. And so then it spread to the kitchen and the whole house and then the whole neighborhood and the whole city. And now it's the whole nation is up in flames. The vaccine will protect us one by one. It's fire-resistant garment. But the vaccine is not going to protect all of us in enough time right now. We need the public health strategies. As we are getting the vaccine as much as we can, we need to keep doing the public health things, which as individuals, most of us, at least in our community, have been doing, wearing our masks, keeping our 6 feet physical distance, washing our hands, not going up into crowds, not inviting crowds in your house, all of that, right? Not getting on the plane, not traveling, all that, doing what you can. When you go to work, stay protected as much as you can. But what the nation has not done, and the whole reason that this is like a raging forest fire across the nation, is that we did not do the government policy interventions that we should have been doing. So first of all, most of the countries who have had good control on this paid their population to stay home. They paid their businesses not to stay open, but to be shut, but keep the businesses, the employees and all paid, and let people help pay their rent or their mortgage and all of that. What we need is certainly the little $600 that we finally got. The House of Representatives passed the HEROES Act in May. And it wasn't until the end of December that the Senate joined in and gave a little $600. And now we're trying to hopefully on January 20th, 21st, we're going to have 2,000, but it shouldn't be a one-time check. It should be a monthly something until this pandemic is over. Many countries instituted something that was like a universal basic income to keep most people able to safely shelter in place without economic worry or economic pressure, or I don't have paid sick leave, or I don't know how I'm going to pay the rent or whatever, or they're about to evict me. God, please let them extend the eviction moratorium, right? The other thing that we did not do in this country is for those people who are really, really essential workers, who must go out there, they didn't make sure that those workplaces were safe. We have the Occupational Safety and Health Administration as part of CDC, which in normal days would regulate workplace safety, all kinds of workplaces, factories and warehouses and all kinds. And you haven't heard peep from them with regard to COVID-19 protections. So hopefully that will change after the change in government, because we have to make sure that those workplaces that really are essential are safe. And we need to make sure that workers are protected, fully protected. So yes, we need PPE for those in the hospital and medical settings and in the nursing homes and assisted living and taking care of people at home. But we also need full PPE for the bus drivers and the grocery clerks and those people who are in meat packing plants, warehouses, and all of that. And if we need to invoke the Defense Production Act, even at this late stage, to produce more PPE, so be it. We need to make sure that most people can safely shelter at home without being worried about economic ruin, that those who must go to work go to safe workplaces and are protected as workers. And then we need to do real public health surveillance. I won't go deep into that, but even if we have to invoke the Defense Production Act to produce more tests, different kinds of tests, we need to do, we had a whole year of neglect of the public health aspects of controlling this pandemic, which is why it has gone crazy. I will take this. Oh, thank you. I see this note. Thank you very much. Thank you, Regina. I just want to say one more thing, which is about why what we're seeing right now is not the post-Thanksgiving bump. There is a post-Thanksgiving bump. It's not the post-Christmas and travel bump. There is that. But what we are seeing, the reason that it's not just going to die down on its own 3 weeks after Christmas, what we're seeing is exponential spread. And the vaccine, as good as it is, with our slow rollout and one by one, is no match for exponential spread. The public health strategies are exponential spread. So you said, oh, she said that 5 times now, exponential spread. What is she talking about? I am going to share with you a riddle. Not my riddle. I didn't make this up. I saw it someplace else. But this is very important for helping us understand exponential spread. So here's the setting. Imagine that there's this big lake, right? And there are no plants in the lake, but you like a lily pad. So you buy a lily pad and you plant it in that lake. So you got one, on the first day you have one lily pad. But the thing about this lily pad, it doubles every day. So on the first day, you have one lily pad. On the second day, you have 2. On the third day, you have 4. On the fourth day, you have 8. The next day, 16, and so forth. Here's the riddle. If the lake becomes fully covered by lily pads on day 40, on what day was it only half covered? And people are like, oh my God, let me get my pencil and paper, right? Let me, is it day 20? No, it can be. Let me answer the question for you. It's half covered. If it's fully covered on day 40, it was only half covered on day 39. That is what exponential spread looks like. That is exponential spread. And at the beginning, it's just like a little, but that is what we are seeing right now. And that's why we have to be so vigilant in terms of our own practices. Again, I didn't make this up, but I heard mask up, back up, wash up. That's a good way to remember to wear your mask, keep your physical distance, wash your hands, and then all the other things. And we have to press our government. So glad all of you guys voted, right? So glad all of you guys voted again in the Senate runoffs, right? The elections have consequences. We have the possibility now to have a government that is going to take all of the, not just vaccine distribution and manufacture, but the public health strategies that need to be put in place to control this exponential spread of the virus. Then when we kind of damp it down, then as we continue to roll out the vaccine, then we can have some kind of control. But this little vaccine rollout is not going to stop. We are the people protected, but we're also the fuel. Right? And we can't protect enough of the fuel right now the way we're going with the vaccine. We need the public health strategies to protect us. And then the vaccine will finish up the job. It's the mop-up job.
Thank you so much. I love that riddle it's almost mind-shattering because you just think about if it's doubling every day and it starts to look like that, the effect that it has. That's a hell of a riddle, Dr. Jones. I tell you that.
And that's what's happening. And that's what's happening.
We have a question here from Dr. Rebecca Mitchell, and that is the system as it is currently set up has a very short window during the day when one can actually sign up because slots fill within a few minutes. I'm gathering this is about vaccination. And that window is not at a set time of day. Do you expect that to skew who ends up getting vaccinated first?
Yes. I think that we have not been intentional about bringing equity fully into our vaccination distribution plan. So first of all, it's almost like if you have the luxury to sit around and wait for it to open, then you can do it. Or some counties here in Georgia and in Florida and other places have been kind of first come, first served. You know, I heard, well, Coweta County has some extra vaccine today, you know, first come, first served. I have to say first come, first served is never going to be about equity, because those people who are positioned, who have the opportunity to be positioned advantageously will get it first. And those people who are working hard and all like that won't get it that way. So there was, you know, there's this National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine that commissioned a study to help develop a framework for the equitable allocation of vaccine against COVID-19. And their framework was partially adopted by the advisory committee advising CDC in terms of, we have these phases. Phase 1A is healthcare providers and folks in nursing homes, long-term care facilities, but they didn't include all long-term care facilities because they certainly didn't include prisons and detention centers and the like, which I think should have also been in there. We can have a long conversation about how my prioritization would have differed from that. But that's phase 1A. Phase 1B from the CDC is age 75 and over and other essential workers. And then phase 1C is age 65 and over and those who are have, you know, health risks, obesity, high blood pressure, kidney disease, asthma, you know, overweight. Well, I already said that, diabetes and the like. Well, this committee on the equitable distribution said that, yeah, they said that, but they also said within each phase, so we're right now in phase 1A, which nursing homes are going to get it first? Because all nursing homes aren't going to get it at the same time. And in order to decide within each phase who gets it first, if you're about equity, you need to use they call it a social vulnerability index, or there's a COVID-19 community vulnerability index, which looks at the impact of the disease on different communities. And you should take your 25% most vulnerable and most impacted communities and take the vaccine to them first. And I haven't heard any state doing that. No state has been implementing it. And so this kind of first come, first served approach, you know, yeah, if you can jump on it, jump on it. I say jump on it. But it's not about equity. We need to get those communities that are hardest hit. They have to have the first access. And I'm saying to those of you all in your communities, give me your questions. I hope to answer them. But I also say, for my decision, and I can honor you all's decision, but I have to say, this is, pardon my French, a damn good vaccine. Both of them. Damn good. 95%. And well, COVID is a damn bad disease. And so even though we don't know the long-term side effects, because we've only known about COVID for a year, we've only started testing the vaccines for 6 months. The average follow-up for the people in the trials is now up to 4 months. So we can't tell you about the 1 year side effects. We don't know. We can't tell you, I mean, at least when they were first authorized for emergency use, there were 44,000 in one study and 32,000 in the other. We couldn't tell you about the rare 1 in 100,000 side effects. Now there have been more than 6 million in this country who've been vaccinated, and they are being followed, you know, to report any symptoms and all. So the rare side effects, I feel very confident that right now, in terms of immediate rare side effects, there aren't, right? But we don't know. And we have to be honest and say, we don't know yet. There's more information that we will learn. But I have to say, it's very good. And what we know so far makes me pick that over the risk of COVID-19.
I really appreciate that perspective from you, because I know, you know, having read Medical Apartheid, having grown up in Montgomery, Alabama, right there near Tuskegee, I know that there is a reasonable suspicion that Black America has as it pertains to how government has treated Black America in medicine. And so I know I know your views on race. I've listened to your allegories, and I also know and respect your expertise. So it means a lot coming from you, hearing this information, because I feel confident that you'd be here to try to help make sure we had the information. So we really appreciate that. I got a question in the audience. Hi, Judge Pfluger. So should someone with an autoimmune condition be concerned about taking the vaccine?
So I don't know. We don't know yet. I would say that we know, I have heard, I haven't read, okay, so this is like hearsay, that from COVID-19 itself, there's some suggestion that maybe that might increase autoimmune responses. So there's that. I would say if you have an autoimmune disease, then you're perhaps more vulnerable to COVID-19. We don't know, we don't have any basis for expecting, but we don't know, yes or no, whether the vaccine would have a very long-term 10-year increase in autoimmune diseases. We don't know. I would say from what we do know right now, we have no expectation. The mRNA that is in both of these two vaccines that we have in the United States right now is quickly degraded. The cells that are creating the little spikes to train the immune system are killed, they die. So I don't have any expectation that there is, but honestly, you put your finger on one of the questions that I say, we don't know, but I'll take my chance on that, right? And so what I say is, if you are at more risk, some people say, well, if I have asthma, should I take it? If I have this and that, those very conditions that we often ask about are the conditions that are making it more likely, if we get infected with COVID-19, that we'll have a severe case of it and perhaps die from it. So talk to your doctor. I'm not your doctor, right? Talk to your doctor to weigh the pros and cons. But there's no evidence that it would cause any problems in those things. The only problems that we know right now are if you have severe allergies that have caused anaphylaxis in the past to a vaccine or to some medicines, and especially if your allergies are so severe that you carry an EpiPen with you, then you definitely should let people know before you take the vaccine. They should be watching you. You should have your EpiPen right there, right? And you should be watched at least 30 minutes before you leave that place. That's the thing. If you have a severe reaction with the first shot, you should discuss whether or not you should have the second shot. Those are the two contraindications that I am very well aware of.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. Penny, are you cool with us doing another audience question? We have a few good ones in here too. You're muted. There you go. What was that, Penny?
Okay, we would like to get as many questions asked as possible.
Awesome.
Or answered as possible. Yes, please.
Here goes one from Constance. What are your thoughts about the stories of those who have died as a response to the vaccine?
I have not heard of that happening. So I haven't heard the stories.
Okay.
So
I know there was
I hadn't heard that.
Okay, there was a news report of someone getting the first shot and then dying after the first shot, like a week or two after the first shot. I did hear that one story, but I'm not aware.
What did they die of?
I don't think that was released, and I don't think that was included in the story. So I think that there may be more information that's really needed to really say that. Thank you for your question, Constance.
Yes, thank you for the question. And may I just say one more thing? So I hadn't heard that. I will certainly research that. But people will die. People will get aches. People will do this, that, and the other. And so the whole idea of a clinical trial, right now we're past the clinical trial in terms of administering the vaccine. But the reason they do clinical trials is there's going to be a background rate of people getting sick or dying from this, that, and the other anyway. So the clinical trial compares those who got, in this case, who got a placebo, a saline shot, a saltwater shot, versus those who got the vaccine, to see, is the rate any different in terms of those who break out with a rash, or those who have a high fever, or those who, whatever it is, or God forbid, those who die. between the two groups. That's why we do clinical trials. Now that we're in this phase of emergency use authorization, it's not final approval because we don't have enough information for final approval, but this is an emergency. In fact, the question that the panel votes on is, do the benefits of this vaccine outweigh the risks in this setting? That's what they vote on. It's a risk-benefit analysis. But anyway, so now we're in this emergency use authorization, so we don't have the background comparison, but maybe we could just, look at expected, what would be the rates of death in that age group or whatever that we expect in normal times compared to what we see among people who get the vaccine. So I just say maybe it was related to the vaccine, maybe it wasn't even, but I have to research that. Thank you for bringing it to my attention.
Thank you. And I see Regina put a follow-up comment from that. It was a doctor, I believe. I don't think they've been able to tie his death to the vaccine definitively. Thank you for that, Regina. I saw Regina had another question that I thought was really interesting here. And that's, I'd love to hear more about the long-term effects of COVID, those that are being called long haulers. Will the vaccine have any effect in combating any potential long-term symptoms for those who have already had the virus?
That's another great question. So the long-term effects include foggy brain, fatigue, still muscle aches and that kind of thing, probably all of the symptoms. And we don't even know how long those long-term symptoms will last. Will they resolve and all? That's all I know about it. You heard everything I know about the long-term effects right now. Sorry about that. And because for the first clinical trials, I do not believe that, I have to check this, but it certainly wasn't a big group. It wasn't a randomized group of people who had recovered from COVID-19 and then entered the trials. I think they took people who had no evidence of having at that time, and they may even have screened, like, were you ever positive for COVID-19 before they entered them into the trial? So in terms of the effect, that's a scientific question that we need to ask. And I don't think we have the basis for an answer for that yet.
Thank you so much.
I'll say my expectation was, since the virus is already doing its little thing in there, well, I don't know. It's a scientific question. It's a great question. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. That's all I see from the audience right now. Let me go to the panel here and
I have
see if
another
there's some
question.
questions.
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead,
do have
Penny.
another question. The community is hearing maybe no or conflicting information on what the actual rate is for those who are afflicted with COVID, especially when we're talking about schools. Are the numbers being reported properly, or better yet, where should we in Georgia go to find the best information on what is actually happening, the positivity rate for our community? Where's the best place to find that information?
So I went to the Johns Hopkins coronavirus tracker first, thinking that was going to be the best. And when it went to state data, they sent me to dph.georgia.gov. Okay, so the Department of Public Health. So I think that because, the bigger trackers are getting the data from the states, that if you want the data, you have to go to dph.georgia.gov. Here are the statistics that I just looked up this evening. So first of all, all but five, so 154 out of our 159 Georgia counties are what are being described as high transmission counties right now. What does that mean? It goes like, is your case rate more than 100 per 100,000? Gwinnett County's case rate right now over the last 14 days is 959 per 100,000. And that's not even the highest. Some of the smaller counties that have been hit hard have higher case rates. It says, do you have more than 10 cases in 14 days? Yes, we do. The cases that we had in Gwinnett County, this can't be in the past 14 days. This is the total number of cases Gwinnett has had is 57,288. what is the percent positivity of the swab test, the PCR, polyclonal PCR, the swab thing? Is it more than 10%? And in Gwinnett, that's true. And then what is the total number of tests that you're doing? More than 20. So we are one of the 154 high transmission counties. In Georgia, we've had a total number of 648,000 cases, 10,000 deaths that have been documented to be COVID-19. But then again, you have to ask, there's another 1,000 and some odd probable deaths that maybe they were never tested or they died at home or the like. So all of the deaths that we see reported that are kind of documented deaths, that is an underestimate. In fact, way back in the spring, people were looking at expected deaths versus observed deaths and seeing a huge gap and attributing, they looked at expected deaths over the past 3 years and it was all kind of even, at this time of the year, this how many deaths. And then in 2020, it was a huge gap. So we are probably missing a lot of COVID-related deaths that might be COVID-related, never diagnosed with COVID because never tested, or COVID-related because they died of a heart attack and there was no room to get them into the hospital or the like. And in the nation or in the world, 91 million cases in the world with 1,956,000, so 2 million deaths. The U.S. represents just 4% of the world population, but we represent 25% of the cases and 20% of the deaths. When I looked here, the deaths were 379,551 as of yesterday. The new deaths, at least for the past few days, we're hitting more than 4,000 deaths a day. The hospitalizations, when it hit 100,000 actively in the hospital, we thought the hospitals would break. And the last I heard, it's like 120,000. They have people in the gift shops, in the waiting areas in hospitals. This is, in terms of new cases today, I think it was 200,000. Remember when Dr. Fauci was saying we have 40,000 new cases today, and what we need to, as a nation, we needed to get it down to 10,000, 204,000 new cases in a day. Exponential spread. Exponential spread.
Wow. That's astounding because I still remember how it was in April and March. And it was, it also makes me wonder, what the state, if the state is doing everything that they need to do in the state. And I wonder the dependence on, the economy. You brought up something earlier when you were saying we need to be able to pay people to stay home. And so if we're not paying people to stay home, then the economy requires that they go out. And so it's almost as if we're incentivizing people to not be safe in that way by not doing what it takes to secure them financially so they can stay at home. What have you heard any signals from the incoming administration that lead you to feel comforted, or do you believe that there is something coming that will help us start to get this virus under control?
Well, I think that first of all, the incoming administration is listening to scientists and is listening to advisors and the like. And so Marcela Nunez-Smith, who is one of the 3 co-chairs of the COVID-19 task force and now a special advisor to the president on health equity, and a friend of mine, she'll listen to you, send her an email or call her, so we have somebody who recognizes the importance of our voice and that kind of thing. We already heard the incoming president talking about wear your mask for 100 days. I don't know if he's going to have a mask mandate, and we need a national plan. We need a national plan for everything. We need a national plan for vaccine distribution. We need a national plan for how we're going to tamp down this raging fire. We need to invest in the states and the localities so they can shore up what was already shaky public health strategy, infrastructure, because we've been disinvesting in public health over a long period, slowly, because it's hard for public health to make the case of how many diseases they prevented. When you don't see the disease, you don't understand that was public health standing in the breach, right? And so public health has had a hard case, but now we have a very strong case for shoring up public health. So this is an important sea change. So I think, yes, I think that this administration recognizes that COVID is a huge problem. It's a health problem. It's an economic problem, right? It's been a political problem. It's a racial justice problem. And I think that they're going to pay attention as opposed to just wish it away or think, well, it's just affecting those people and we wanted to make America white again anyway.
Well, I need to give
you
a
said
shout
it and I
out
felt it.
to our news.
you said it and I felt it, Dr. Jones, because at some point it does feel like the inaction is we can let those Black folks die. And the inaction that we're seeing that we saw on the federal level and on the state level, especially after everyone found out that Black folks were disproportionately affected by it, that's when everything opened up. That's when you saw people taking the mask off. So I appreciate you saying that, because I felt that down in my soul, because we knew who was going to be most affected before the data was there saying who was going to be most affected. And once the data was there, it seemed like everyone was like, oh, we're good. While, not everyone, but white America seemed to be like, oh, we're good in a lot of ways. And so I really appreciate you saying that, but I really felt it too. And I think it's important that we speak plainly and honestly about what's happening, and it's something that's happening. So,
and the other thing is that we don't continue to hear about the disparities in infection rates and death rates. It's almost like it's become normalized, just like the disparities in the numbers of our babies dying before their first birthday, or the disparities in maternal mortality and the like, so that we're not even talking about it anymore. It still is the case, but we're not even talking about it anymore because that's just, well, Black folks, they'll have more of the bad anyway. But President Poole, you were about to say something too. Yes. Penny, were you going to say something? You're muted.
I don't.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't think. Okay. Well, while we await the technical there, you spoke earlier in the beginning of today's show about how it's not just Black folks who are hesitant about the vaccine. Can you go over those numbers again? Because I know by the time this gets to Van Jones, he'll be talking about Black folks not wanting to take the vaccine and ignoring the rest of the numbers, right? So can you go over those numbers again as a whole?
Well, the number that struck me, and I don't remember all of them, but the number that struck me was that it was 35% of Black folks who said they were not sure they would take it, or at least not right away, and 42% of Republicans. So more Republicans were hesitant, if you will, than Black folks. And and we can't let it be a Black thing, right? And we can't, because if it becomes a Black thing, also it would be an unreasonable thing, or why are they so stuck on that history when it's not just history, it's the present day of what's happening to us that makes us hesitant. But this is a time, one of my good friends, Phil Wilson, who established the Black AIDS Institute out in California, and was a fierce advocate and activist during the HIV, says what we don't want to do is let COVID-19 settle into the Black communities, because we didn't do everything that we could as a nation and as communities and as individuals to protect ourselves in the same way that HIV/AIDS has settled now into Black communities. And gay white men, I mean, that's a thing of the past for many of them, but HIV/AIDS is still very prevalent in Black communities. So he was saying, basically, we can't let mismessaging or anything. What we need to do is say, yes, there are a lot of questions out there. We don't know. Here are the answers we have. I respect your ability to decide, but you need to know that this is a very effective vaccine. It's a potentially devastating illness, not always, but very potentially. And I have to add this too. I know I must have said this when I was with you guys in April. we want to take such good care of ourselves that we do not end up in the hospital. Because once you get to the hospital, that's a very lonely thing right now. First of all, the hospitals, especially in Los Angeles, when you look, they are filled to bursting. They are now not taking people to hospitals if the EMT judges that that person would have a low chance of survival. You understand me? They're under what they call now crisis standards of care, like they were in a war triaging. And if they have one ventilator left and 10 people who need it, then they're using some kind of criteria, which probably are incorporating racism in the criteria. I could go into that more, but to decide who to save. We don't want to be in that position. We want to use all of the tools that we can to protect ourselves. That is not to say if you feel short of breath, you need to go to the hospital, because if you can get a treatment early, the treatments are more effective early than late. If you have a positive COVID-19 test, I would suggest you also get a pulse oximeter, that oxygen measure thing that you told me, remember that I mentioned in April. Mm-hmm. If your oxygen level goes below 90, you need to call your doctor or emergency department, and they'll tell you to come in, right? But we need to protect ourselves in all the ways we can so it doesn't come to that, because once you get in the hospital, your family can't be there to advocate for you, right? Your family can't be there to hold your hand when they intubate you. You don't want to be communicating, your family certainly doesn't want to be communicating with you by iPad to say goodbye. So we have to take this very seriously and use all of the protective things at our disposal with which we are comfortable, but I'm saying let's get comfortable to protect ourselves and get through this. I predict that we will be through this by December of next year. I plan to wear my mask till December of next year.
Dr. Jones, I would like to give a shout out to new elected officials on our school board, Dr. Therese Johnson and school board member Karen Watkins. They have been proactive in asking for a task force for the Gwinnett County school system, because the data, we have not seen the data. And they are making decisions without having any idea of what is equitable and who needs to be served, what schools have outbreaks happening. This is information that's not being told or not being disseminated to the parents and children. They're giving overall numbers, but they're not identifying where these numbers are coming from. So I want to just put it out there again that our new school board members, Dr. Therese Johnson and Karen Watkins, are trying to make sure that there is a policy put in place through forming up a task force. There is no task force in Gwinnett County that is actually looking at the data to decide if schools need to be open or closed. They are arbitrarily and emotionally making this decision. So shout out to them. Let's support them. Let's help them to make policy so that the students, the teachers, the administrators, the bus drivers, everyone is safe. And so that no one has to worry who have pre-existing conditions, so that they will know. So again, shout out to our newly elected Gwinnett County school board members in their fight to get a task force to make sure that the data is disseminated to the community.
That's great. I also want to say about the schools, yes, the kids need to be in schools, but we need to value their lives, their family lives, the lives of the teachers, the bus drivers, the cafeteria people as well. And so what this means policy-wise is, after this is said and done, and it might take another year, right? But hold on, maybe not. If we all get vaccinated real soon, then maybe it won't be so long. That we then recognize, especially the differential impact that staying home from schools has had on different communities versus others, depending on the resources that the parents had and all that. And we need to have massive investment in all of our schools, but especially those schools, again, in those 25% most vulnerable communities. We need to be providing resources according to need. I have 3 principles that I articulate for achieving health equity. The first is valuing all individuals and populations equally. So it's not what the president did when they found out about the disproportionate impact of COVID-19 on communities of color in April, when he went out all of a sudden, reopen Minnesota, reopen Michigan, reopen Virginia, right? You're exactly right, Simeon, about the timing of that, right? So valuing all individuals and populations equally, recognizing and rectifying historical injustices, that's principle number 2, and then providing resources according to need, not equally, but according to need. And that's the piece that hasn't been lifted up in the vaccine allocation protocols that I've heard of, but it needs to be there. It needs to be there in our building back better response after the COVID-19 and after all we've been through. So I just put that out there too. So thank you, President Poole, for lifting up the need for that task force and those school board members. And it just made me think, yeah, and after, when the schools are reopened, we need to make sure that we clean up all the air ducts and all like that, that we, that all of this stuff, the physical plant and everything, and that we invest massively, especially in our communities of color, in the schools, in the housing, in the environmental cleanup and green space and food and all of that, in businesses and banks, all of that.
Yeah, Gwinnett County schools are currently open, Dr. Jones. So
you said they're fully open? They are?
Not fully, but there's a choice, but they are open and trying to get everyone in. Whereas right now with the hotspot, they have closed down other communities, other counties. But Gwinnett is trying to get everyone back in under the leadership of Superintendent Wilbanks. At the last meeting, his declaration was that school needed to be open and that the students needed to be in those classrooms, regardless of whatever the teacher's condition is.
Right. So that's not valuing all individuals and populations equally.
But I just wanted to make sure our community knew that.
Yes, so absolutely.
Yes,
absolutely.
I also wanted to, you touched on something in relation to, how the goal is to avoid having to go to the hospital as one of the major aspects. I recently had a very close family member who ended up diagnosed with COVID and had to go to the hospital after they started experiencing shortness of breath. Come to find out, their oxygen level had reached below 89 and was dropping. And she's in the medical profession. And as a result, she also knew some emergency room doctors. So she was able to call and get some one-on-one advice, as well as have someone advocate for her, because her husband and family members were not allowed, to come in or anything like that. So she was by herself. And luckily, she was only in the hospital for 2 days, or a full day plus. And they did a plasma treatment for her.
Yes. Yes.
Can you talk about what somebody who does end up in the hospital, what type of things they should be requesting, or what types of questions they should be asking to ensure that they're getting the very best care that they can?
Thank you. So
she's recovering, by the way. She's recovering really well. Saw a change in symptoms in a matter of 2 or 3 days after that. Oxygen went up the very next day. She was able to be released the very next day. And I don't think a lot of people are getting that same care. So I want to make sure our residents know what they can ask, what types of questions, so they can get the quality care they deserve.
So I'm going to mention 3 things, which the earlier you get them, the better. And I also am going to say that I am not currently in practice and have not been actively in practice for decades. Okay, so this is what I know, not from practice, and it's not medical advice. Monoclonal antibodies are what the president of the United States and all of his close friends got when they got tested positive, and it caused miraculous recovery. And my husband just showed me an article yesterday that it's now more widely distributed throughout the nation, and not enough people are asking for it or getting it, you know. So monoclonal antibodies, that's one thing. What your friend got was probably convalescent plasma. So that is when people have recovered from COVID-19, and then they go and they contribute their plasma to give, you know, antibodies, you know, like a early burst of antibodies. And that also is very good given early on. In fact, for both of those, I heard another practitioner friend of mine saying what we really need to do is set up outpatient settings, because both of those need to be given by IV, but that we need to actually think about setting up outpatient settings so that people don't have to go in the hospital to get them. They can get them so early on after their symptoms to turn the thing around. That's the second thing. And then remdesivir, which I believe they're now recommending to get earlier, that you definitely would get in the hospital. But that was decreasing the amount of time in the intensive care units in early studies, and I haven't read more on that. But all three of those things now, the earlier you get them, the better. So you need to ask about that, and especially if there's monoclonal antibody that's available in people and it's not being fully used up, then, you know, let's ask for it.
And I think it was the convalescent plasma. Was that so?
That's
it was monoclonal antibodies, convalescent plasma, or Desivir. And if I understand correctly, Remdesivir. Thank you. And if I understand correctly, the Remdesivir needs to be administered early in the diagnosis or early in the contract. Is that correct?
All three of them, the earlier the better, is my understanding, especially with the monoclonal antibody. I mean, they gave that to the president, like, boom, and to all of his friends, boom, you know, and you saw how they just turned around. That and steroids is my understanding of two of the major components that they got, whereas other people are dying. But the monoclonal antibodies that used to be hard to get, and I'm understanding that they're not so hard to get, so people should be asking for it.
Thank you so much. And I think it's so important that we know what to even advocate for, because we know that there are a lot of folks that aren't trying to help us when we go somewhere sometimes. And I think that that's really important for us to be able to advocate on behalf of the people that we love when we have the opportunity as well.
I don't know if you all saw the story about Dr. Susan Moore in Indiana, who she passed away, a sister who is a family physician who is being treated in a very racist way in the Indiana Health North hospital system. And then a colleague of mine, Dr. Aletha Maybank, and I, and Dr. Uche Blackstock and Dr. Joya Creer-Perry actually wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post that was published on December 26th called "Say Her Name, Dr. Susan Moore." And we called out the racism that was there. And when you hear her story, you know, so many of us might think, oh, I have a feeling like they're not really treating me with respect. She knew what she was supposed to get. She was a physician, right? She knew how a respectful, competent physician would treat her, right? And she was not getting that in terms of pain medication, in terms of, you know, so many different things. You know, they threatened to put her out to discharge her on a Saturday night at 10 p.m., right? They did discharge her from that hospital, and within 24 hours, she was readmitted to another hospital where she experienced much better care in terms of they were on it, but it was a bit late, and she did pass. Anyway, so that's another reason I say we really, if you feel short of breath, you need to call them and go. I'm not saying stay at home, but what I'm saying is before that, let's protect ourselves. We as Black folks are more exposed and less protected. That's why we're getting more infection. We're more exposed on the job, less protected. And once infected, we're more likely to die because we have more of the high blood pressure and the diabetes and all. So we're more burdened by chronic diseases with less access to responsive health care. I'm just saying, let's limit our exposures as much as we can. Get the protection, all the kinds of protections that you can. When your turn in line comes up for the vaccine, seriously consider getting the vaccine. And let's protect. We need to protect ourselves. And then maybe the new government will be more interested in protecting us as well. But we're on our own for these last, 10 days or whatever it is.
Thank you so much. And for those who are listening, I just posted that article on our Facebook page as well. The Say Her Name article from the New York. Was that New York Times? No, the Washington Post. From the Washington Post. So please go out there and read that article. I did see it. Now I'm going to read it. And I was following the story, but I hadn't read that article. But if you touched it, I'm reading it. And so thank you so much. Penny, President Poole, do you have any other questions or anything you want to talk through?
No, I really just want to thank Dr. Camara Jones for taking the time to come to Gwinnett and give us this perspective from an African American view as a medical expert. We seldomly get the information that is required to keep us a robust and healthful nation. And when we have proponents such as yourself, who is willing to, at the drop of a hat, to come and spread that knowledge, we are so very grateful. And the Gwinnett NAACP wants to say thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. And let's all stay safe. Stay safe.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jones. And for the audience out there, if you have not went on and listened to Dr. Jones's allegories on race or any of the other things that you'll find out there on YouTube, I know you had a TED Talk out there, as well as some others where you talk through some great allegories on race. Please go in and listen to Dr. Jones. Where can they find you? You're on Twitter now, correct?
I am. I sort of crept back out onto Twitter. I'm going to actually say how you guys can not only, so you can find me on Twitter, but I'm trying to be part of the Biden-Harris administration. I would love to help. I would love to lead their efforts if they create a new White House office on anti-racism and equity, or a department, a cabinet level department. I would love to be the secretary of that department. So if you all have any hints, or any contacts, or you know people who know people, just to lift up my name or reach out to me and I can send you some other materials. But it is important for us to be addressing anti-racism and equity in not just in health and not just in housing, not just in education, not just in justice or immigration, throughout the administration. And so an office or department that was devoted to infusing attention to anti-racism and equity throughout the whole executive branch is necessary. And I have the experience and the skills and the knowledge and the power and all of it. I'm the one. So if you guys can help me get there, that would be great too.
Absolutely. And we sure need you there. And I'm putting this here where our audience can find you on Twitter as well. Just made a little banner there on Twitter at Camara Jones. So if you type in Dr. Camara Jones, you will find her on Twitter. I noticed you were on Twitter the other day. That really made me smile because I think last time we talked, you didn't really have a big presence on Twitter. So I was really happy to see you there on Twitter. And I see everyone in the audience is so much. Thank you, Dr. Jones. We're seeing. And so we really appreciate you coming in to talk to us. It was absolutely super informative. And we look forward to having you back, but hopefully as part of the administration. So we definitely need you out there advocating for us. And you've done it so strongly and well. So thank you so much for joining, and we appreciate you.
Thank you, and bye, everybody. Stay safe and well. Bye-bye.
Thank you. And we just want to close out with some announcements, community announcements. And quickly, I think Princess is in the room. I wanted to just quickly introduce our assistant treasurer. Princess, are you available?
If you're talking, you are muted. I see unmute, but I don't hear. Well, might be having some technical, but
Yes. Well, again, we just wanted to recognize you and thank you for your service as a new member of the executive team for the Gwinnett County NAACP. Also, along, do you have that flyer that I sent you, Simeon, to post so that people
I
can see
absolutely
about
do.
our? Yes, please, if you would put it up on our screen for us. We are having this event on Sunday. It's our annual Sunday supper, and this is a time for us, family, friends, community, to sit down, talk like we used to in the old days. It's a part of the MLK Jr. Points of Light to celebrate the birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And this Sunday at 4 o'clock p.m., we will be presenting the Southern Poverty Law Center, one of the supreme civil rights organizations who have been litigating in Gwinnett County pro bono on behalf of families and children. They have been going into these panels and representing students for free because they know of the disparities that have been happening in Gwinnett County. So please let go to our Facebook page, Evite, sign up. Our other partner is Who's Got Soul. Who's Got Soul will be giving us $5 gift certificates for each meal. So not only will we be having the Southern Poverty Law Center telling us how to positively advocate for our students. But we also have the opportunity to buy our supper through Who's Got Soul. And each person in your family will get a $5 discount gift certificate after you register again at our Eventbrite. We are excited. We have a well-being professional also. So we have the Southern Poverty Law Center, Who's Got Soul. We have a well-being counselor that will give your family advice. And then we look to hear from our teachers, students, families. We want everybody to know about this robust conversation on how we need to protect and help our students be successful and to have a positive experience with Gwinnett County Public Schools. Any other announcements, Simeon?
No, just thank you for the audience for hanging in there and rocking with us. And thanks again to Dr. Jones for this great information that we got today. And if you are interested in joining the Gwinnett NAACP, you got it. It is scrolling right across your screen right now. You can join at naacpgwinnett.org. And guess what else? You can volunteer at that very same place, naacpgwinnett.org. And you know what else you can do? You can donate to the Gwinnett NAACP at naacpgwinnett.org. We have such a great group of volunteers. For those that don't know, we were out making sure that people at the polls had their rights protected, that their rights to vote were protected. As you saw during the election season, we were questioning candidates. We were making sure that you had the information that you needed to make the decisions that you made. So please come volunteer your time. If you have resources where you can donate, please donate. And most all, we'd love for you to join the Gwinnett NAACP so we can make this next year even more successful than 2020. We need your help. We are trying to build the best community in Georgia. We are trying to advocate for you, ensure that your rights are taken care of. We know that there are so many forces out there trying to tear us down as a community, and we want to be at the front, standing in the gap for you, making sure that we are represented in all levels of government and our needs are taken care of. So, again, you can join the Gwinnett NAACP at naacpgwinnett.org. Thank you all for your time this evening, and I will turn it over to President Poole for some final words before we close out today.
Thank you. And Simeon, thank you for streaming, being everything to the program, moderator, introducing everything. We could not do this without you. Your information, your expertise. Let's recognize Simeon for what he did last year. And, we're looking for greater things this year. And we appreciate you very much.
Thank you, President Poole, and I sure appreciate you.
And we want to make sure that we send up an update, with all the things that we did in 2020. The Gwinnett chapter of the NAACP Unit 5664 will be sending out an update, the state of our organization. We want you to know the successes that we had. We want you to become a part of those successes. Again, thanks again for our new secretary, Tristan King, our new treasurer, Derek Wilson, assistant treasurer, Princess Hawkins, and also for our vice presidents, Edward Paul and Hope Dennis. Thank you, officers, our executive committee, and we look forward to great things. And we're just going to depart and close this meeting out. And we just want to ask God to cover, protect his people, his community. Let us walk in your light, God. We thank you for everything that you have supplied. We hope that we were a light unto one, Lord, that we just opened up a door this evening. Thank you for our guests, and thank you for everything that was done to honor you in this community tonight. We pray, we thank you. Amen. Good night,
Amen.
everyone. And
Good
thank
night.
you for coming.